Good afternoon. This is Professor David Weiss, speaking from New Jersey City University's Institute for Dispute Resolution and its Connecting Bridges and Borders radio show, which you can find both on Spotify and YouTube. Academic engagement, connecting global affairs and student engagement across all mediums of the day. Today we have Jack Ciattarelli with us. He is a dedicated public servant. He's also currently running for governor for the state of New Jersey, and we're going to have a conversation with Jack. Jack, how are you today?
Very well, David, and my compliments. You nailed Ciattarelli. Not everyone does. You nailed it.
Well, thank you very much. It's I guess a lot of times with our students, we do a lot of traveling and have a lot of experiences. So getting used to names around the world is very important, and we've learned that lesson, that names are about the person, and that's why I appreciate the fact that I can say it correctly.
Well, you got it perfect.
Today I want to talk to you a little bit, Jack, about first starting off, especially for our students who may wind up in your footsteps one day.
I hope so.
Yeah, and how did you get into public service to begin with?
Well, I always say you get into this business one of three ways. You have a family member that's in it. That wasn't the case in the Ciattarellis. Or you're inspired by somebody and then you seek public office. That wasn't the case either. Mine was the third way. When I came home from Seton Hall University with my MBA CPA, the mayor of my hometown, Raritan Borough, was a lifelong friend of the Ciattarellis. He saw something in me, and he came and actively recruited me to run for borough council, and I did. So that's how I got into the business. I was recruited.
So as they say in The Godfather, sometimes, they can't get me back out, right? Like I have to stay in. So what are some of the trials and tribulations of public service in your earlier career, and some of the trials and tribulations you're seeing generally in public service today?
One of the great challenges I always enjoyed from the very beginning is I'm a Republican because I was always in love with Abraham Lincoln, and historians agree he was our greatest president, but a lot of people forget he was our first Republican president. So I was always going to be a Republican because of Abraham Lincoln. And sure enough, when Mayor DeSico approached me when I came home from Seton Hall, he was a Republican. But the town council was all Democratic because Raritan was an FDR immigrant New Deal town. And Republicans are outnumbered there 3-1. And I kind of liked that because it made you earn your elections. And I liked going out and talking to people about how I would solve problems. I'm a problem solver. I like a challenge. And so that always helped me with my candidacies, going out and talking to people about how we need to solve our problems. And I think that's the key to politics today. Too often we get caught up in the hyper-partisan aspects of politics. What people really want to hear is, how are you going to solve my problems?
It's really interesting you say that. Winston Churchill, and I'm paraphrasing this, said once during World War II in those dark hours, that those that are pessimistic look through the prisms of pessimism at difficulties and challenges. Those that are optimistic look through the prism of optimism to the difficulties and the challenges. And I think that's something that you just stated so profoundly, and I think so important for both our students and just an inspiration in general for many of us as we're going through globally this COVID and pandemic era.
Oh, I appreciate that, David, because again, I don't see problems, I see challenges. But with each challenge, that's an opportunity. And when we can exploit the opportunity that's presented by the challenge, in the public sector, we can also restore people's faith in government, because right now it's at an all-time low.
Yeah. So if we're looking at sort of these challenges, but from a positive perspective, and we stay more on a local perspective, but also on a global perspective, what would be your vision for New Jersey if I'm posing to you, looking out 4 years from now, 5 years from now, as we come out of the COVID pandemic era?
I want a New Jersey where young people want to take root. I want a New Jersey where the middle class can get ahead, as my parents did. I want a New Jersey where anyone feels they can achieve their American dream here, whatever that American dream may be. And I want a New Jersey where our seniors feel confident they can retire here comfortably. Right now, none of those four things are taking place, and it saddens me. Because I think we all love this state very much, but it's got its challenges. There's a number of things that are broken.
And within that concept of being broken, if we're talking about future investment and a vision, how do we look at preserving and expanding our human capital, which is our students, like those here at this great university, which is located, by the way, in Jersey City, the most diverse city in our country, and it is just filled with unbelievable amount of opportunity in terms of its human capital. But how do we keep it here?
So Jersey City is a model, I think, for the 6 or 7 cities in this state that continue to experience significant blight and economic distress. I see a very vibrant city on the rise here in Jersey City. We need to do that in our other cities. But I just think it's very, very important to make people understand that they can achieve their American dreams here. And right now, that's not the case in New Jersey. So one thing that you'll see under Governor Ciattarelli is someone who's committed to making our cities vibrant. Because without that, and we're not going to be able to do that without, I think, making them just more attractive from an investment standpoint and making people want to live in these cities. When people want to live in a city, then that very, very dynamic small New Jersey economy starts to rise, where you see mom and pop shops pop up everywhere. So I don't know if it's going to be like it was 30, 40 years ago when New Jersey was a mecca for a great many Fortune 500 companies, but that doesn't necessarily mean it has to be. We certainly would welcome those companies, but it's the small business economy that really propels our state, and the only way that's going to take off is if people start living in our cities again, as they are in Jersey City.
And if we explore that, some of my students that are part of our university, that are in my class, and also work within my institute, have a couple questions around some of these concepts. So would you mind if we have some of them ask some questions to you today?
Not one bit. I'd love it.
Excellent. So our first question comes from Nicole. Nicole?
Hi, Jack. In what ways do you think we can increase foreign direct investment in the state of New Jersey and perhaps approach it differently?
Well, Nicole, thank you for your question. One of the reasons why I'm running for governor is New Jersey has the worst business climate in the nation. That's not political rhetoric. That's a fact by all the major business journals. Because of our tax policy, because of our property taxes, we are number one in out-migration. Young people aren't taking root here, so we have to worry about our labor pool. We have to solve all those things internally before any domestic entity takes root here or any foreign capital decides to invest here. So the first thing I need to do is make sure that New Jersey's economy is thriving, because our business climate is very, very attractive. And we do that with significant changes to the tax code. I think once we do that, what we can do is send people who represent New Jersey overseas and find out who's thinking about investing here in the States. New Jersey is a prime location. Its real estate is less expensive than New York, but yet we've got great access to the ports. I mean, take a look at a city like Jersey City or a city like Newark. No cities have better access to train, plane, highway, all the above, and the ports. I mean, those are the key ingredients to any economy taking off. So we have everything we need right here. I just think we need to straighten out our business climate here at home and then put on an aggressive recruitment effort to attract foreign capital.
Thank you, Nicole, for that great question. And, Jack, Nicole's question is really important because academics like our Institute for Dispute Resolution, which is a medium that promotes foreign direct investment both from the mediation perspective as well as through its Connecting Bridges and Borders platform that encourages trade. So my question as a follow-up to Nicole's is, how do you think academics can play a highway like we have started here at NJCU 7 years ago and expand that around the state to complement other state agencies or choose New Jersey?
Well, a very, very robust, I think, and dynamic relationship between academia and the private sector is what will benefit New Jersey greatly. So we depend on our academics to kind of be thinking down the road. They're the ones doing the research of what's going on around the world and around the country in terms of what's working best for economy and for the public sector, for the private sector. So I want to see a very robust relationship between academia and the business community.
And that really leads into the next question from Michael.
Hi, Jack. How do you think we should be innovating and modernizing the higher education system in New Jersey?
Michael, thank you for your question. My wife, Melinda, and I have 4 children. They're all in their 20s now, 3 college. One went into the trades. And what I was most impressed about with the Universal Technical Institute here in New Jersey, with the one child that went into the trades, is the placement office. And I think where higher education can be more dynamic is helping people find that first job out of college, whatever their major might be. And in so doing, that's kind of what we call workforce development. It's working in close partnership with industry and business to find out what labor needs are needed throughout the community, because we want people to get a job right out of college. And we hope that those that graduate from college here in New Jersey, whether or not they were originally from New Jersey, are going to take root here. So again, I think the best way to do that, the way to make higher education more dynamic, is for it to have a very close working relationship. And we can do this in Trenton with the Department of Education, Higher Education, and the Department of Labor to make sure there's just a much more dynamic, symbiotic relationship, synergistic relationship between industry and academia so that our graduates have a job right out of college and right here in New Jersey.
And that's a great way to look at the the challenges we face now, in fact, the head of IBM was coined back in March with what we call new collar jobs. Here at our university, we are expanding in many different mediums of that and trying to find corporate partnerships to fill this box for new collar jobs. So, when we look at what new collar jobs represent, it's really about this thing that we are now talking about called STEAM and STEM and innovation and entrepreneurship, but they're really just words. And my next student, Darby, has a question for you about those words. Darby?
Hi, Jack. How can the words STEAM, STEM, and new collar jobs be put into actual industry practice within policy for the state of New Jersey?
Well, Darby, thank you for your question. First and foremost, I think we have to make sure that our academic settings, you're going through college, that you're being taught the skills that industry needs. So I think we hear those words often, but what exactly does it mean, not just in terms of your academic performance, your course requirements, and your graduation, but what does it mean in terms of jobs? So we just have to, again, I can't overemphasize this enough, better link what it is that emergent industries in New Jersey need most, and are our institutions of higher education producing that kind of skill set in our graduates? I think that's what's very, very critically important. But let me also say this, Darby, that while I'll pay very, very close attention to working in partnership with our institutions of higher learning, you'll see a great deal more emphasis on vocational training from Governor Ciattarelli. There are a great many students, as we know, that never really want to go to college. And I need to tell you, there are industries in New Jersey that desperately need people to go into the trades. And we need to identify those students in earlier time. And I'm talking about 8th or 9th grade to get them on a career track with regard to vocational training.
With it, as a follow-up to Darby's question, if we look at all of this new positioning of capital for diversity and inclusion, which is commonly referred to as ESG, that's environment, social, and corporate governance. Where do you think New Jersey can play an active role, both in tapping into this sustainable capital, but also creating much more diversity and inclusion in the new era of job creation, as well as preservation for innovation and entrepreneurship for our state?
Well, Mother Earth is sending us some very, very strong signals, David, as to what's going on, particularly with regard to climate change. And what that's creating is a whole new industry, or what we refer to as green jobs. I certainly want to be, as governor, I want a state that's on the cutting edge. I don't want to be on the bleeding edge. I want to be on the cutting edge. So that presents a whole new opportunity for emerging industries and job growth, I think. And again, our higher education needs to reflect that too. What does that mean in terms of what the expectations are of graduates that go into these green industries and what's expected of them? So again, I think it presents a very, very unique opportunity for New Jersey.
And I think that's a great way to conclude one of our last students from the Institute, Neil. Neil has a question on infrastructure and new technology. Neil?
Hi, Jack. How can green new jobs as well as green energy play a role in urban and suburban planning under a new future for New Jersey over the next 5 to 10 years?
I think this question is particularly important and relevant to New Jersey because we are a sprawl state. But I'm someone who believes in land preservation and stopping sprawl in its tracks and trying to point our population growth to the cities. And it's the cities that usually lead the way with any type of new way of life, new way of living, and certainly a more green way of living with sustainability being represented, for example, in our LEED certified buildings that you see going up in buildings. You usually see that in the cities before you see it in the suburbs. But the other thing that's really important here is that the next generation doesn't seem to want to live in the suburbs. Now, maybe that will change as they get older and have children, as many before them did. But population growth in New Jersey needs to take place in our cities. And that won't happen unless our cities are green cities with great sustainability measures.
Well, within all of these important topics, and I appreciate, Jack, you taking the time to come and speak with us today, I'd like to have some parting words about how you view from where we sit today in a very, very uncomfortable place for many of us, because it's, the lights were turned off, right? But if we're looking out and we're finishing this conversation on an optimistic note, what parting words can you have for our students, for our community, for the great state of New Jersey, and for people around the world from your perspective?
There's one thing that everyone wants, David. I think everyone wants fair opportunity, and they want financial security. And that comes from getting the job of their dreams or achieving their American dream by opening their own business one day. So, for me, what I do, and I think the reason why I've been successful in winning elections, particularly in races where Democrats outnumber Republicans, is I go out and I talk about all the things that we agree are broken, and then stimulate a conversation on how do we fix those things. I mean, I've taught as an adjunct professor at Seton Hall. You're a professor. You know the best lectures are when it's a dialogue, not it's a monologue. And it's because you've stimulated your students to ask questions and start participating in a dynamic conversation that leads to solutions. So, I mean, that would be my way of telling folks, don't lose hope. Let's focus on what's broken, and let's start having a larger conversation on how best to fix it.
I couldn't agree more. Collaboration, not isms.
Not isms.
I want to thank everyone again for our ongoing podcast and Spotify series under Connecting Bridges and Borders through the Institute for Dispute Resolution at New Jersey City University, where the global issues of the day are brought local, all with the inspiration of our students and how academics can play a pivotal role in fostering relationships, connecting bridges. Thank you very much. And as always, I bid adieu until next time.